Welcome, everyone. This is a somber day. My name is Lakey Love. I use they, them pronouns. I am the co-founder of the Florida Coalition for Transgender Liberation. We are gathered together, students and legislators and directly impacted youth and faith leaders from across Florida who are advocating against HB 7 and 1557. This is both the governor's Stop Woke Act bill, a racist anti-trans bill that will target Black, brown, and immigrant youth and change the structure of the education system as a whole, as we know it forever. And it will also be dramatically impacted by HB 1557, the Don't Say or Be LGBTQ bill. So we're going to start off today with our guests and the amazing and awesome organizer and representative, Rep. Angie Nixon. I'm going to pin you, Rep. Nixon, like it is. Kick us off, please.
Good morning, everyone. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all today. I have a sick baby in the background, so my apologies. But I am here just in support of all Floridians, right? Because clearly, the majority of legislation that is being passed out of Tallahassee right now is really only catered towards one base of people, one group of people. HB 7, the Stop Gay bill, the anti-abortion ban, and so much other stuff, the anti-immigration bill, so much other stuff, so many other bills that are coming down the pipeline. It's simply not warranted, and it wasn't asked for. As you all know, we have a governor who has been pandering. He's been pandering to a base of voters simply because he no longer cares about Florida. He cares about trying to become the next president of the United States. And that is something that we do not need in a time where we have a housing crisis here in the state of Florida, where housing costs are going up 30 to 40% over the past few months, right? Where Miami is now the most unaffordable place to stay in the country. We should be, as legislators, passing policies to address those issues. I'm a mom, as you can tell, but I'm also a mom of 4 other kids, right, who are also in public schools. And there's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of over 5,000 teachers. There's a shortage of over 5,000 paraprofessionals. That's mental health counselors. That's custodians and school support staff and school cafeteria, food service workers, bus drivers, and we, at a time where we have all of these issues, those are the things that we should be addressing as a legislative body. The fact that the unemployment system is still broken is an issue for me. The fact that I'm still getting calls in regards to that. I'm getting calls now that a lot of the landlords are trying to push their tenants out by making up all these crazy stories, saying things like, literally, this happened, saying things like, oh, it's a safety hazard for you to stay here, it's an unlivable condition, but you really are just trying to push out a tenant so that you can jack up the rent. And that's absurd. And that is not what we need. Here in the state of Florida, we need to pass policies that are people-centered. We need to pass policies that do not attack Black and brown people, because let's be clear, that's what these bills are really all about. In a time where they know Black and brown power, the Black and brown communities can come together. The numbers are there in regards to demographics. In a time where we are building power, they are passing policies to circumvent that. They are trying to keep power at all costs, and they do not care who they hurt in the process. And so what I ask everyone to do is to come together and make sure that this November, we need to come together. We need to educate people about all these horrible, disrespectful, disheartening, ridiculous not needed bills. We need to educate them about all the bad stuff that's coming out of Tallahassee so that we can vote. We have the power to take over, to reclaim the people's house, because I still believe that it is the people's house, right? And I know some people are getting sad and frustrated, right? Because it seems like we can't do anything, but I really do believe that we can win. Many of us come from ancestors that were resilient, right? And so that blood runs through our veins. And I know, again, in November, we have the opportunity to get rid of the governor, to get a new governor who cares about the people, and to start flipping some of these seats in the state legislature. So again, I thank you for all your advocacy, and keep up the good work, and let's stay in this fight, because we got little babies like this one that we have to look after. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Rep. Nixon, and thanks for joining us. Take care of that baby. She's a little activist on her own, a little mischievous hellraiser. So we're counting on her. Next, I'd like to bring to the floor, I thought I had Rep. Chambliss, but I'm not seeing him anymore. He might have dropped off. So I'm going to jump to our directly impacted student, a young man that's been loud at the Capitol already once this year. I'm going to turn the floor over to Orion to speak about these bills and his experience.
Good morning. My name is Orion Blue, and I use he, him pronouns. I am a trans man. I am a sophomore at Arnold High School, and I highly value my teachers. They are all fully capable of seeing the F on my documentation and talking to me accordingly. And yet they ignore that and treat me like the person I actually am. I do not believe this can or will continue if House Bills 7 and 1557 pass. I am in a gay straight alliance club with many other LGBT plus students, and this definitely would not continue. This may not affect high schoolers now, but there is no reason to believe that it will not. Minors are smart enough to make their own decisions about their identity, or at the very least learn how to do so in the future. Removing any possibility of education on gender identity or sexual orientation does nothing but harm. You cannot learn to be accepting of something if you aren't allowed to learn about. And you cannot learn to be accepting of yourself as something if you do not know it exists. In addition to being a trans man, I am asexual and aromantic. In elementary school, however, when I did not know these things existed, I believed I would have to put up with a romantic relationship eventually. I even talked to a few boys in my classes that, in reality, I barely knew, about getting married one day. The lack of knowledge about my identity led me to believe that no such thing existed, and that I was just straight, just like supposedly everybody else. This could be very harmful down the line, especially if HB 1557 continues past the lower grades. People can get stuck in relationships they don't want to be in just because they're pretending to be something they don't even know they're not. Of course, there are infinite resources online, but especially for those who aren't LGBT plus, or at least don't know they aren't, how often do you go online to find out whether your identity is actually different than you thought? These bills are both extremely damaging to the youth of Florida, to both LGBT plus students and those who may no longer learn about them. The Florida legislature must vote no on these bills. Students do not need to be shielded from their identities. Thank you.
Wow, stand up and lots of courage. So you all, some hand waves there for Orion, young and proud high school student here in Florida. Next to the floor is Rep. Kevin Chambliss. Thank you for joining us today, Rep. Chambliss. I'm just going to hand the floor over to you and let you tear it up.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here, to be here in this space. I really do appreciate it. Again, I'm Representative Kevin Chambliss from the Homestead, Florida City area down in Miami-Dade County. I represent Florida House District 117. And I'm a new state representative, meaning that this is my first term, the first opportunity that I've had, second session of my first term in office. And quite honestly, I am overwhelmingly appalled by not just the bills, but the intent behind the bills that we've seen. You know, I'd love to speak in a way to say that they're unprofessional, but and to say that that they don't meet the standard of the House of Representatives. But I'm starting to question that standard. Like, what is that standard? What is the standard of an elected official when we can present immoral bills that have language that intentionally hurts people in our community, intentionally puts them in danger, puts their psyche in danger, their mental well-being in danger, and we're having these conversations about bills that affect children, right? That's the part that doesn't make sense to me, because we are sitting here playing politics with the future mental health of our children. That's what we're doing. And we are unashamedly doing it. There is no sensitivity. There is no attempt to understand or attempt to empathize with scenarios that might exist, or things that might be unintended consequences of these bills, because we think it's more important to have language that we can use for re-election than it is to look after the welfare and the safety of our kids. I mean, I was listening to the young man who spoke before me, and you look at someone like that. This is a young man that, if this was maybe he's in his mid-teens, if this was when he was in elementary school, think about the trauma of not being able to communicate what you think and feel inside, the body that God gave you with someone, not being able to share openly because you're worried that conversation would not be accepted in the school system. That's insane. And that's the piece that I don't get, is that this has nothing to do with whether you agree or disagree. You and your moral house can stay in look, I stay in my moral house, you can stay in your moral house. When we come to talk about legislation, the basic common sense things about the human brain and the way that humans work, the way that we feel and the way that we operate, those things, I just don't understand it, right? All right, so we're saying don't say gay, and like that's lame, by the way. Like, right? Trying to tell someone whether or not they can say gay, ask questions about being gay, straight, or etc. Ask questions about the world that we live in 2022, where we benefit as a country about being a free country, having free speech. All of these things are out there, and kids who might have questions aren't going to be able to ask those questions. That's troublesome. In HB 7, which I've considered the dumbest bill. I've always wanted to know who wrote that bill, because it is unenforceable. It makes no sense, because I cannot legislate how the next person feels, just like I shouldn't be able to legislate what happens to someone's body. I definitely can't legislate what happens to you emotionally. It will probably put most history teachers out of work.
Period.
Because some parent is gonna test it and complain because the history teacher said hello. And they're gonna look to sue the school district, so it's unenforceable. But more importantly, this idea of this term racial color blindness, which I'm going to debate and question fervently, because we are not colorblind, and our racial identity, our ethnic identity, where we come from, the history of how we came to be, is not something that we should be showing a blind eye to. Quite honestly, it's something that we should be embracing, because we are the diverse fabric of society that we are. I should be able to embrace where someone came from and learn about them. But if I'm racially colorblind, does that mean that I act like those things don't exist? Am I not supposed to be accepting of everyone, because our stories are different. I mean, you can tell who wrote this bill, right? Because I don't think they want to accept the fact that we're different. Our stories are different. Our stories created who we are, and our stories should be told. Look, guys, this is the situation, and this is a time frame where we're getting caught up in national politics. We're getting caught up in, they're calling it culture wars, because I guess there's a culture fighting against another culture. But this is also the time that you were called for. If I'm not mistaken, I'm on the phone with a whole bunch of young people. This is the time that you were called for. You were prepared, or you were being prepared for this your whole life. We need you to stand up, because they don't listen to us. They don't listen to fellow lawmakers who have certain experiences. They don't even listen to professionals and scientists who tell them that this is nonsense. But you are the young people. You are the future generation. And I need you to do two things: speak up, speak out, but also take note. Take note of who stands up for you, who speaks for you. Take note of who acts like you don't exist. Take note of the things that they do that are going to hurt the children that come behind you. And when you have the opportunity to fill these seats, when you have the opportunity to be in these positions, make sure that you remember these days, and you remember exactly what happened, because we're dependent on you to make sure that we can reverse some of this hateful policy that unfortunately they have the numbers to push through. We're going to fight it. We're going to fight it on the floor. We're going to fight it in the courts. We're going to fight it in our communities. And we're dependent on you guys to stand with us. With that being said, I'm long-winded, so I'll talk too long. Unless there was any questions, I could definitely, pass the mic to the next person if you need.
If you have to hop off, Rep. Chambliss, if you want to take questions from the media before you leave, that's more than okay.
No, if there's any questions, however, whatever is most appropriate for you guys.
Okay. If you're willing to hang with us, then we'll do questions at the end like normal. So thank you. That was, as always, you rocked it. Thank you. Next, representing the Dream Defenders, loud and outspoken, yet another youth, to tell us like it is, Malik Gary, please come to the floor.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I am Malik Gary. I am a 23-year-old college student who represents the Dream Defenders chapter in Tallahassee. And I am totally against these horrible bills that they continue to suppress on the minority communities. Our civil rights are under attack here, and it continues to be under attack every year. We see it. We see it with HB 7, HB 1. And so I encourage you to stand up and fight back. It is a time we got to stand up and fight back. Not only when we're in the state right now, in our state, we have a teacher shortage. HB 7 will continue to make sure that we have a teacher shortage. So instead of us making bills that don't help our teachers who barely get paid enough anyway, we should be making bills to make sure they get more sustainable pay. It's important also that we get out and vote come November. I encourage each and every one of you to go back to your communities and make sure we register people to vote. If we got to drive each other to the polls, we got to get to the polls. We got to flip some of these seats, y'all, and we got to take a stand. It's going to be important. Lawmakers don't care about Black and brown people in our minority communities. We see it every day. We see it every day. We see it, how they're trying to restrict our history. It is because of my history that I'm able to be here today and understand why it's important that I vote. And if we don't teach these lessons in our school, then people will never be really able to understand who they are. And so I am against it, these horrible bills, HB 7. And it's time we get out and register each other to vote. It's time we take a stand, and we can't stop until we see a change, so that we can leave the next generation with something worth meaningful. If we got to stand in the streets all day, we got to do it, y'all. It's important that we leave generational wealth and legacy to the next to come. And it's got to start right now by stopping HB7.
Thank you, Malik, for that. And thanks for all the organizing work that you do. Stand up, power to the Dream Defenders. Next is Representative Michelle Rayner. Welcome to the floor, Rep. Rayner. Glad you could join us.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to level set, I'm actually not going to be on screen because I'm traveling and I don't want more stuff to kind of kick me off. So I'm just going to be verbal with y'all. So I apologize, but I do want to thank you, Lakey, for setting this up and for all the partners and advocates for setting up this moment in this time for us to come together and really speak some truth to power. As y'all know, my name is Michelle Rayner. My pronouns are she, they. I represent State House District 70. I am married to the most wonderful, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Bianca Goolsby. And so when I think about these bills and I think about the intersection of these bills, the intersection of race and identity and sexual orientation, we know that Black and Brown children will be most harmed by these bills. And we know that that there is a level of privilege being a grown adult that we have, that we can move in different ways. And there's a level of privilege if you have access to money and if you have means to move your child out of a certain school and this, that, and the third. And then there's also just a privilege by showing up as white. And so while I'm concerned about all of our children, I'm really concerned about our most marginalized, especially our children who identify as non-binary or trans. And so I'm very concerned about what is happening. And it is, I think all the things have been said. I hopped on and heard Rep. Chambliss, and then I heard Malik. All the things have been said that can be said. And I want to address the teacher point as well. We've had teacher shortages, right? We've had teachers who passionately teach and educate our children, teachers who have chosen to go to Title I schools to educate our kids. And, we see them leaving not because they want to leave, not because they're like, I don't want to be an educator, but because we have this yoke in the state legislature that makes it harder and harder and harder for our teachers, to teach and to care for our children. And this bill does just that. And my wife, when she was in the classroom, came back and told me many stories of children coming out to her, of children kind of expressing they wanted to do some self-harm, expressing that they were not able to have those conversations with their family members for fear of what would happen. And now with this most recent amendment, it's basically saying even if there is a threat of abuse, abandonment, or neglect, well, doesn't matter. The parents need to know. And literally, it's just, to me, it's like, just say you don't like LGBTQ people, just say you don't like Black folks, just say the battle is going to be on the floor Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I appreciate the work that so many of folks on this call have done to really lay that foundation and to really bring awareness to that and to activate the communities across the state. Because myself and Rep. Chambliss and the other representatives and senators who are on the right side of history would not be able to do the things that we do without y'all. So I'm very grateful. And I'm going to end it there. I may have to hop because of signal, but I am glad that you just allowed me some time to say hello and to share.
Thank you for that, Rep. Rayner. Did the media have any questions for Rep. Rayner before she has to hop off? You can put them in the chat or just come off mute. Nope. Okay. I'm sure they know probably how to follow up with you. Thank you again for being here. Incredible. Thanks for speaking truth to power. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. Talk soon.
Yeah, thank you for all you do. All right. Next to the floor is the gorgeous and incredible Will Larkins, a high school student that is directly impacted.
Hi. My name is Will Larkins. I'm a 17-year-old junior at Winter Park High School, and I'm just like any other good student. I have good grades. I have a close group of friends. I'm the president of the Queer Student Union at my school, but I'm also gay and non-binary. I knew I was different from other boys from the age of 3. Growing up in a private school, I was not exposed to the existence of the LGBTQ community. So by the age of 8, I developed a deep hatred for myself. I wanted to play with girls' toys, dress in girls' clothes, and I didn't know why. I thought I was broken. Banning the discussion of LGBTQ people doesn't get rid of us. It just makes our lives harder. A few months ago, in October of 2021, a group of close friends and I attended a Halloween party. Walking in, I was immediately met with nasty stares. I had been there for no longer than 10 minutes when a group of guys from my school and from surrounding schools circled me, shouting profanity and slurs, telling me to F-word kids and to F-word animals, telling me I'm going to hell and reducing my identity and existence to faggot. I stood there as my friends were screaming back, defending me, trying to process what was happening, when one of the guys came out of the crowd and said, "If you and your friends don't leave right now, we are going to beat the shit out of you." The next day at school was horrible. Word had spread and suddenly everybody knew who I was and what had happened. I broke down crying during lunch that day in my English teacher's classroom. She comforted me, she hugged me. She let me know she'd experienced similar things being queer when she was my age. She told me it would get better and that she was here for me. She took care of me when the administration at my school looked the other way. If House Bill 1557 had been in policy at this time, my teacher would not have been able to talk to me about it. Schools should be a safe space for us because not everyone has a safe space at home. Did you know 40% of the homeless youth are queer and only 5% of the general population is? Yeah, a lot of children and teens find solace and community at their school when they're not able to safely be themselves at home. In fact, one of my best friends was forced out of his home in early November for being trans. He stayed with me for a month. Saying that subjects of sexuality and gender identity are not school appropriate tells queer people all across Florida that their identity is something inherently sexual or perverse. Queer teens are already 4 times more likely to commit suicide. Our rates of mental health issues, drug abuse, and self-harm are exponentially higher than our straight counterparts. If you vote yes on House Bill 1557 or House Bill 7, you are directly contributing to mental health struggles, drug abuse, and suicides. The queer youth will be forced back into the closet at school. Don't cater to parents with homophobic, transphobic, and bigoted views. Include queer history, events such as Stonewall and Obergefell versus Hodges in the curriculum. Don't erase core parts of American history because people with outdated views don't like it. Don't call yourself pro-life, then allow this bill to pass and kill LGBTQ children. Don't say you stand for freedom and then take away the rights of children to be themselves at school. Don't punish me because my existence makes you uncomfortable. That's the most un-American thing ever. Vote no on House Bill 1557 and House Bill 7. Thank you.
Whew. I'm all teared up. Thanks, Will, for that. And check out the massive amount of support you're getting in the thread. Thanks to all of our youth speakers, but that personal story was very touching.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me share that.
Yeah, what a gift. So next to the floor is going to be Brianna Beadle. Brianna is representing Florida Student Power Network and is a directly impacted student. The floor is yours, Brianna.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Brianna, and I'm an 18-year-old college student. I go to Florida Atlantic University. And as a Black student, like in Florida, this bill is going to drastically affect my education because so much of my education, like I personally, I'm a criminal justice major and I'm getting a minor in political science. And 2 years ago, when I decided that I wanted to have a career in social justice, it wasn't because it wasn't because of a political science class or a criminal justice class. It was because of my sophomore ENC 1101 course. It was just a basic college writing class. And when my teacher like explained the concept of intersectionality, it was the first time that personally I had ever heard the term. I learned that identities are interconnected. It's different to just be a Black woman or just to be a Black gay woman. Like everything is different. And this isn't just a niche thing. Like this is basic education that not just Black students should learn, not just LGBT students should learn, that everybody should learn because this is the world that we live in. And by blocking teachers from being able to teach these things and from being able to receive training, diversity training in order to service their students, it does a disservice to everyone and not just minorities. Because how can we enact change if we want to rely solely on the shoulders of disenfranchised people? Everybody needs to be involved. We need allies. And how can we have allies if nobody is educated on these subjects? And that's what this bill intends to do, because they know that if people learn about the injustices in this country, people are no longer going to be able to justify it. Because contrary to what this bill believes, there is discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. And our governor and people like him are scared, because if people of color start coming to their power and we get allies and people realize what this country really stands for, they're going to come after them. We're going to take away their money, take away their power, and they're afraid that once people know, we're going to fight back. And they're right, we are going to fight back. We should fight back. And as a student of criminal justice and political science, how can I say that I'm a student of these subjects if I'm not properly educated on them? How am I supposed to receive the education that I deserve if my teachers aren't allowed to talk about that type of stuff? How can future students be able to say that? This is not just an attack on my education, it's an attack on everybody's education. And instead of prioritizing these bills, you need to be investing in students. Like, you need to give students our schools our money that they deserve, the education that we deserve. No, instead you want to take away the education that we are born to have. Everybody should have this education. So give us funding, resources, a full curriculum, everything that we can see for ourselves and learn from our histories, and make sure that we are all protected from discrimination in our schools. Our education should be our power, you shouldn't try to take that away from us. So thank you very much for listening to me, everyone. And be against HB 7 and SB 1557. Thank you.
Woo, education should be our power. Thank you for that, Brianna. What an amazing testimony. We really appreciate you being here today. So you all give a little love to Brianna in the chat. All right. First, before we move to our next speaker, I just want to give a shout out to the organizations that we did not invite to the floor, but that are standing with us today. Women's March Florida, the Florida NAACP Youth and College Division, the Florida National Organization for Women, Equal Ground, and the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates. Thank you for fighting hard in the Capitol and the streets, and with constituents and youth across the state, and stand up against these bitter and terrible bills. Next to the floor, I am going to invite Taffany Brown to tell us how it is. Taffany is a directly impacted youth, and it will be standing in solidarity and representing Florida Student Power Network.
Good morning. My name is Taffany Brown. I'm a second-year communications major at the Florida Memorial University, the only HBCU in South Florida. I found out about House Bill 7, better known as the Stop Woke Bill, through social media. I received a better understanding through the Florida Student Power Network and also reading all 28 pages of the bill itself. The bill is offensive in so many ways. The bill has several red flags and has already, as of today, been amended several times. The bill uses offensive language. They want to take away the word ethnicity and replace it with the word color. There is more to Floridians than their hues. What about the cultures and their contributions to this state? The bill also speaks of segregation in the education system when it comes to gender and sex. The bill says on page 9, subsection 3, lines 206 through 209, a public school or Florida system institution may provide separate toilet, locker room, and shower facilities on the basis of gender, but such facilities shall be comparable to such facilities provided for students of the other sex. If we let this bill slide, what will stop our state's government from segregating us by ethnicity? I mean, color in the near future. I will be affected by this bill because they deliberately try to erase my ancestors' history from this state. The bill addresses the Holocaust in 27 lines. The bill addresses American history, and 28 lines. The bill only addresses African American history in 7 lines. You cannot speak of American history or the history of Florida and not speak about African Americans. We are American history, like it or not. Not only this country, but the state was built on the backs of my ancestors, and they will not be given the short end of the stick like it has been in the past. This bill should not be passed. It is disgusting and disgraceful to what little progression this state has made. But I did learn in the Capitol last week that this bill might get passed because of how quickly it has made its way through committees in the Capitol. I also learned that in politics, this bill is called red meat. In other words, it's a stake for the Republicans to serve their agenda because of election season. If House Bill 7, also known as the Stop Vote Bill, is passed, the Capitol should know that when election time comes around, and we will show up at the polls. We might lose this battle, but in November, when it's time to vote, we will win this war.
Woo! Drop mic, exit left. Thank you for that, Taffany. Fantastic. I'll give a little love to Taffany in the chat, and some hand waves there. I think next to the microphone, to speak from a faith perspective, Reverend Dr. Russell Meyer, the Executive Director of the Florida Council of Churches. Welcome to the floor. Thanks, Reverend, for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you all. And all the speakers are just fantastic. It's one. If you don't mind, I want to read probably one of the most well-known pieces of Christian scripture. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. Doesn't insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. By that definition, HB 7 and HB 1557 are hate bills, thoroughly hate bills. And there's simply no other way to present or to speak about them. And so the legislature should not be even entertaining hate bills. What is this about? It's about white identity politics, and white identity politics has always been based in hate. And so we have to call it what it is. This is white supremacy dressed up in eyes. And I've sat in many committee meetings this session, and the white dominance over again is stunning in its harm and offense, even as it pretends to some sort of false power. Great bills are being ignored, bills that would actually help all Floridians, but that's not happening. If you look at HB, it uses privilege to suppress conversations about the damage privilege does. By excluding gender, it makes heterosexuality morally superior, even as it says there's no moral superiority. SCOTUS has said that sex includes gender, so by intentionally excluding gender, we know it's discriminatory on its face. It wants to talk about history as though it's ontology. Nobody is saying anybody's inherently this, that, or the other thing. What we're talking about is the legacy and accumulation of American history that has practiced exclusion and white supremacy over and has done real damage. Economic studies show that if we had actually implemented the teachings of race studies over the last 20 years, we would have added $16 trillion to the American economy. So we have to be very clear that the zero-sum game that's embedded in HB 7 is hurting all Floridians. It's dragging us all down. When we deny economic thriving, flourishing to a third to half of the state. We're dragging down the whole state. Why is this being done? Why would we intentionally hurt ourselves economically? It's because we've opened up the doors for Florida to become the retreat of billionaires. Over 250 billionaires, mostly weighted in Southwest Florida, are driving this with dark money, pushing an agenda to divide people rather than to unite us in a new flourishing that could happen if we truly educated all of our children, if we really took our history seriously, learned where our roots were, honored the people who really built this nation with their intellect and their hands, even while they were enslaved. So we have a long ways to go, and what bills try to do is silence privileges some parents against others, and the privilege is being given to people who hate us. We've just got to stop this. Look, at the end of the day, this is called individual freedom, right? And it's individual freedom over against communal norms. We now live in a pluralistic state, a multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-gender state. And so the communal norms that come out of fusion politics are different than the communal norms that come out of supremacy. And so there has to be some real change in the way individual freedom respects multicultural communal norms versus the communal norms of white supremacy. The communal norms of white supremacy has harmed everybody in Florida, even the white supremacists. It has damaged their soul. So this is a moment really for the Florida legislature to look into the mirror and ask itself, how damaged does it want to be going into the future? Because it wants to drag that damage with everybody into tomorrow. We're right to gather this is the Florida we want, a Florida in which everybody thrives, in which we can respect and learn from the differences we present, rather than trying to force everybody into a mold we know is bad and broken. God bless you all.
Thank you, Reverend Meyer. I'm so grateful that you're here and heal and get better. Thank you for joining us despite your health situation. Next to the mic is the president of the Florida NAACP Youth and College Division, as well as the president of FAMU NAACP. Devin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. Unfortunately, it's well, I should say it's very unfortunate that these are the circumstances that we all are gathering under today. As I sit here in my vehicle on Florida A&M's campus, I'm looking directly at the state capitol building, and as it stands as the tallest building in our city, it casts a wide shadow on the shame that it really places on our city, honestly, as a capital city. The legislation that has gone through in recent years, not just been filed, but has actually gone through in recent years, definitely contributes to that shadow of shame that we live under here in Tallahassee. These two bills are just two of the bills that contribute to that shadow of shame here in Tallahassee and across the state. It's really unfortunate that not only we have to fight for the rights of our students, but the students have to fight for their own rights when they should be learning. They should be enjoying their youth, their childhood. I stand here in support of you all and our students, as of course the president of the Youth and College Division, as I should, because as our youth deserves the best education, the best representation and support possible, we must all band together as we are doing now and as we continue doing to fight against this hatred, this disrespect, this divisiveness that our legislators, not all of them, of course, but too many of them are not only filing with these bills, but also are supporting, going all the way up to our governor. So it really does just show the unfortunate circumstances that we all are under here in Florida right now. And although this day today will not be a representation for forever of Florida, it's people like us that are the ones that change it so we can have a better future, and so our youth can have a better future. So I really look forward to continuing this fight with everyone. Thank you again for having me here in support of you all. Anything that the NAACP can do, not just at the state level, but at your local levels, please let us know so we can help you all out. And I will make sure that our students here are always in the state capitol, not just this legislative session, but going forward, fighting these hateful and just vile bills that unfortunately fill our House and Senate and our governor's office. So again, thank you very much for having me here. Looking forward to working with you all. Hopefully we can make some real change, and just for the equality and safety for all of our youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devin. Proud to have you here, and feeling it as a Tallahassee resident myself. That shadow of shame is long-standing and chilling. So thanks for that metaphor and reference, and thanks for being here and all the work that you do. Our final directly impacted youth today that will be speaking out is Robin, a 9th grader. Robin, you've got the floor.
Oh, hi. Thanks for passing it on to me, Lakey. Hi, my name is Robin, and my pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I'm strongly against HB 7 and HB 1157 as a transgender and queer youth. These bills blatantly promote hatred and discrimination towards marginalized people by preventing our representation and freedom of speech in classrooms. I know many people think that discussing systems of oppression is not important and will make certain people feel uncomfortable. But we have to face our history and what's going on today. More than half of trans youth attempt to kill themselves, and I am part of that statistic. I face hatred and discrimination every day simply for being myself, including from my loved ones, which in the past has driven me to believe I don't deserve to live. Allowing trans youth to use locker rooms, restrooms, and sports team they feel comfortable in is gender affirming and life-saving. It allows us dignity and safety in who we are. I know school is one of the few places I feel safe and welcome as a LGBT+ kid. There's a community of like queerness and otherness I'm part of in my school. It can feel incredibly supportive. My parents come from a country where it is illegal to be gay, so being trans is incredibly difficult for me. School is one of the few places I can meet other Asian LGBT+ youth, and it reminds me that I can love and be part of both my culture and my gender identity. If other people feel threatened or uncomfortable with who I am, that's their problem, not mine. And yet these bills prioritize certain people's comfort, usually the upper class, white, cisgender, straight, etc., over the lives of many others. We need to teach everyone's history, not just the revised version, to make those in power feel comfortable. Erasing who we are as those historically massacred and discriminated against is killing us. It pushes the idea that our stories and lives do not matter and spreads misinformation and ignorance, which can foster hatred in others to target and kill our communities. I have many family members who, through the ignorance and misinformation they've been given all throughout their lives, have hurt me deeply to the bone. It hurts a lot when the people who love you most like look you in the eye and they just say, we don't love you for who you are anymore. It can be deadly when strangers harass and kill my community, and when the government itself, the highest institution of power, directly makes laws against us. Allowing our presence in the classroom and education is one of the pathways out of the dark. Our lives matter too, but it seems that the governor of Florida has forgotten that. The Florida government should do their job and say no to HB 7 and HB 1157. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that. It was incredible and extremely articulate. And yet again, I'm tearing up. So thank you for these incredibly hard to hear stories. It is important that we honor the youth that have been here today, telling their stories, sharing their experiences, showing up with courage. Before we leave off, I want to just ask before we open the floor for questions to our speakers, I just want to add to a few things that people may not have covered because they've come up so fast. So on Thursday evening, we saw Rep. Harrington, who is, Rep. Harding, the representative who's carrying the Don't Say or Be LGBTQ in the Classroom bill, HB 1557, add 2 amendments to his own bill that we're certain are probably going to pass. The first would put a 6-week deadline on forcing Florida public educators and staff to out students to parents. And the second, even more horrifying, is an amendment that basically creates a 1-person courtroom in the Florida Department of Education, housed under the Commissioner of Education, that gives this special magistrate the authority to dictate rules and policies in districts when any parent without evidence reports that their child has been instructed in sexual orientation or gender identity. It also will allow these parents without evidence and with no evidentiary claim to hog up the Board of Education to occupy anti-LGBTQ hate and bigotry. So we're already seeing an expanse of anti-LGBTQ and anti-race attacks at the local school board level due to the Parental Bill of Rights that passed last year. There's one other bill that we didn't mention today, which is HB 1467, and has already passed the House. It will limit school board member terms and force all instructional materials, including media materials, to be listed online. So we're planning, we're feeding right into the hands of the anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black, anti-Brown, anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-climate science haters at the school board level, at the local district. And now we have amendments that are going to secure that there's an attack at the top, at the highest level of the Florida Department of Education as well. So we encourage everybody to look at the amendments that were filed by allies of Black, Brown, immigrant, and LGBTQ people and or directly impacted Black and Brown legislators. So please look at those amendments and call your representatives and ask them to vote yes on these friendly amendments. If we have to pass this legislation, which we shouldn't, at least rectify the gross and unjust problems that we're seeing there. So it is now time to open the floor to questions from the media. And we still have quite a few media with us. Are there any questions from the media? Unfortunately, we cannot take questions from the listening audience, but we can take questions from the media. And I'm going to start to pin our speakers back. You feel free to come off your microphone or ask in the chat. Did anybody see any questions in the chat that I might have missed, Mel or Tosh or somebody else? Did we see any? All right. Well, I'm going to ask then one last time if we can give some love to the speakers, especially the directly impacted students today that have had the courage and the power, and some may have evil repercussions at home. And so we want to make sure that we're aware that we're standing up for our youth while we're also protecting them when they speak out. Please, you all feel free to come off your microphones and give a little love or put some love in the chat. I just want to give an extra big thank you to all of our guests here. Like I said, especially the students that have spoken out. We really appreciate having you here, and we would be lost without your guidance. So, all right, everyone. Do any of the speakers have anything that they want to add before we hop off? Nope. Okay. We are going to stop recording.